Hey guys, today I wanted to go over one of the more interesting matches that we had in this ASL Season 12. If you haven't seen it yet, this is a great match from the round of 24 of Season 12 in Group F between Light and Ruin. Tasis and I commentated this. It is on the official ArtosisTV YouTube page, so you definitely can go find it there with the commentary. But honestly, at the time, it was actually kind of a hard match to call. Light, obviously the best Terran in the world now that Flash is off in the military. Ruin is one of these very strong, very modern, up-and-coming Protosses. And yeah, I recall as I was commentating it, I was kind of in shock and disbelief that Light was able to come back from a gigantic deficit. So I wanted to look at this game a bit more closely and really analyze it, kind of go through exactly what happened that allowed Light to come back here. So we're going to be jumping around in the video a little bit while I kind of analyze what occurred, because definitely a match that I think of a lot. I think there's a lot to learn from both Terran and Protoss. So definitely one of the more interesting games, I think, from this season. Okay, so the map is Eclipse, and like I mentioned, Light, he is basically the top dog of Terran. I guess you would put Rush there and now as well, but Light definitely like the most respected Terran in the world, with Flash kind of MIA in the military right now. So, yeah, this map, Eclipse, and I will be jumping through the map a little bit, just kind of jumping forward and back and as we need. This map, Eclipse, it's known for the fact that gas steal happens so often, oftentimes Zealot rushes, things like that. The map gets split if you do get to late game relatively cleanly. Maybe... yeah, slightly more base is taken from Protoss, but you kind of squash them out as Terran. But none of that really matters here. What matters really is the opening of the offensive gas. So let's take a look, right? So first off, you see that the probe just blocked there. Here, let's just jump back and show that again, because I think that this is an important thing to show and talk about. So watch this, right? The probe comes in, and here's the thing. The barracks gets started between 1 minute 25 seconds and 1 minute and 30 seconds. Okay, so you actually, like, his probe is basically perfectly timed. It's coming in, and this is the SCV that was like making the depot. It starts harassing that immediately, and it goes right to here. You can see my mouse, right? The little white mouse here. So normally you want the barracks exactly here, because it makes the micro hole right there and right there, just in case there's like proxy gates or anything. So the job of the probe is to block that for as long as possible. So let's take a look at how he does this. All right, so Light throws it down. This is an acceptable barracks placement. He still has room to micro here. And I mean, if things get out of hand, he can SimCity a little bit more additionally. Now, as soon as that's taken, you want to take the gas. Right? Just for the record on gas timings, gas with normal Terran versus Protoss openings is taken between 1 minute 40 seconds and 1 minute 45 seconds. So you can see it's 1 minute 28 seconds right now. You can see that Light does not have the minerals for gas. A lot of people talk about things like, hey, why don't you just, if you see the probe, take your gas right away? Well, the problem is, if there's a gateway, if you look at the mini map, I'm kind of pointing to some areas, right? Like, right here, if there's a gate, if there's gates here or gates here, or a gate, rather, it would be, and you're taking this gas before the barracks, then your Marines are so late that you're going to take too much damage, so it doesn't make sense. Almost every single pro in the world allows their gas to be taken if it's going to be taken this early. The only notable exception would be Sharp, who really prefers to just take his gas. But anyways, that's an argument for another time. Here, Light will let him take the gas, which, again, this is super, super standard on the map. Now, the build that we're going to see here from Ruin, at the time of this game being played, this is the most hyper-modern build literally in the world for Terran vs. Protoss. I think I had heard about this and played against it approximately 1 day, or maybe it was 2 days before Ruin did this to Light. So this was super, super cutting edge. But before I mention that, I do want to point out, right, he makes the second barracks. The second barracks here, this is a lot of pros have started doing this where they just put down the second barracks instead of searching for the proxy gate, because it takes 50 seconds for the barracks to build anyways, so you can always cancel it, right? You're losing a little bit of mining time and obviously a little bit of canceling minerals. It's like 25 plus 13 or something, right? That's approximately how much you're losing. So it's like you're losing 38 minerals plus the mining time of an SCV. So it's not nothing. But if there is a proxy gateway, this is going to allow you to have an advantage against that. So that's why he's throwing that down. All right, so let's jump ahead just slightly here. And you see there's the Nexus first, right? So look at this. He's stolen the gas. He has a forward pylon here. And look at this Nexus. Bam. Down goes the Nexus on 14. Okay, so like I said, the build that Ruin is doing here is like the most hyper modern build. Like for the timing between when I heard about this and when this was done to light, yeah, it's literally like a day or two. So let's take a look, right? So there are 2 barracks being placed. So you might think to yourself, wait a minute, he sees 2 barracks. Why would he ever make a Nexus? Well, it's because why not just play it like it's PvZ? So look, forges build pretty quickly, cannons build pretty quickly, and that's what we're going to see out of this. Now look, that's the forge right there, right? We see the forge, and that's basically, look, Light's SCV also sees the forge, and as soon as you see the forge, you can just cancel the second barracks. Because you'd have no chance of getting across there and doing anything against this. One cannon can stop just so many Marines. So I just jumped ahead 5 seconds. You can see he's already canceled that barracks. He's coming down to take his own expansion since he does see this. There's no gateway or anything yet. And of course, one thing to mention is the location where he put the barracks, the second barracks. Ruin could see that it was canceled. One thing you have to keep in mind is that the assimilator has one more vision than a refinery, so it can kind of throw you off what its vision radius actually is. So generally on a map like this, you want to build the barracks a little bit further down than what Light did, just to try to force him to, in a situation like this. Of course, this is kind of a rare set of things coming up. You might not ever play against this in your life, but you want to see if you can get them to make the cannon before the gateway. You got to kind of think of things like this in terms of like Protoss versus Zerg, right? You got to conceal as much information as possible. Try to make the Protoss slow their own build as much as you can. Either way, I mean, he sees the barracks floating away as well. There's not that many Marines. All's good. Okay, gateway going up. So from here, we'll start jumping forward a little bit. This right here is Light trying to punish like the greediness of the lateness of the cannon. Ooh, look at that. He actually got the SCV. I forgot about that part. But he only sends 1 Marine, right? And I mean, this is reasonable. Ruin does a really great job of just sending 3 probes out. He kind of hunts this down. He's losing some mining time, but you know, he's basically killing off a Marine. He's stopping a possible bunker rush that would have been very, very annoying to deal with, like that bunker, right? If it's out of range of the cannon. I think it was just barely in range of that cannon, but if it is, that's going to be really annoying to deal with only Zealots popping out. Okay. So the cannon is up. Scouting is basically done as far as the main base goes. Let's jump ahead a little bit here. Finally has his gas up. You can see Light heading towards that 100 gas for the factory. Also, look at the mini-map right now, right? You see this? So he's got this SCV up here, and he's got a very good spread. These are all of his Marines, right? The SCV is keeping track of the Zealot. The rest of the Marines are checking locations like the 3rd base and the 4th base, which are normal places to proxy things. Down in the bottom right is a normal place to proxy things. He's just kind of spreading out. He's seeing, okay, are there any probes down here? Are there any hidden techs or anything? Because he can't get into the main base. And you've got to consider, like with that cannon there, there's basically no way to sneak in. So he would need a comstat, right? So, like, let's say he starts his academy right now. That's 50 seconds for the academy and then 25 seconds for the comstat. So That is 1 minute and 15 seconds from now is the first time he could get any intel about what the tech is in the main base. So it's pretty smart to just kind of send those out, especially considering he knows exactly where this sellout is. Right, nice micro there. 2 kills on the probe. I love it. All right, so the factory is on the way. He's throwing down the bunker. And of course, Ruin doesn't have a ton of intel. Like, he knows. Well, the thing is, he has enough intel, right? Like, he knows when his gas was killed, and then you just kind of add on the numbers for how quickly gas is gathered, how quickly you build a refinery, that type of thing. And he saw the command center being built, so he actually does have pretty full information. And I got to jump back here, saying, because I was kind of talking through that, but let's take a look at the timing of this third Nexus. It is insane. So he has a robo on the way. Okay. Watch this. That's a 5:18 third Nexus. So let's list what has occurred this game. So this is such a modern build from Ruin. And I just wonder how much practice Light had against this. Obviously, he would be one of the very first players to know about this build existing. But he got offensive gassed, and then it was a 14 Nexus from Ruin, Forge, Gateway, then Cannon. So his Gateway wasn't very slowed down to get the Forge, right? That's not that much. And then a 5:18 third Nexus. That is so fast. He already has his Robo on the way. Obviously, he knows that right now, Light doesn't even have a factory done. So there's no real attack that can occur here, right? Like, I mean, Light could have some amount of Marines here and try to send them across the map, but that actually wouldn't be a good play because that would slow down drastically all of his tech. Maybe against this specific build, if he had built Marines non-stop, he might be able to walk out across the map and force a cancel on this Nexus. But against anything else, he's going to be at a huge disadvantage for making those Marines non-stop. So just to kind of clarify some of these ideas that people might be having about ways to punish this. This is a very solid build from Ruin. Very, very strong. Notice that Light did run up to those comsats very, very quickly. We were talking about that just a minute ago. He's getting his second factory quickly, his second gas quickly. There's his first armory here before 6 minutes. Just pretty standard observer, and see that scan comes down, right? So that he sees the observatory on the way. He has pretty good information. He has another SCV out looking, trying to figure out what's what. And adding 3 gates, right? So he's going from 1 gate Robo third into 4 gates, which is a really good play. I like where he's putting some of these pylons and things as well to check some of the less frequented routes, the more sneaky routes where you don't have as many eyes on it. Dragoon's catching the SCV. Just the Dragoon coming down and catching that SCV. Okay, he comes up and you can see the edge of that vision actually did see the Nexus, I believe. Yeah, we checked Light's vision there. So he actually did get... There's like a bug where if you turn off the vision of a player, it doesn't actually show on Fog of War where the building was, but he saw that there was a Nexus there, okay? So he starts building Marines again. Now, unfortunately for Light, just looking at the math of this situation, what he's about to do just doesn't really have much potential to work, right? Like, he has his first tank. There's his second tank. He's going to have his third tank here pretty quickly. He's adding a third factory. Okay, he's making some Marines. But this is 4-gate Observer that he's going up against. All right, this was a Nexus first build. Look at the differences in supply right now. Massive supply advantage for Ruin. We do have 6 Marines, that's really tanky. To use tank in another way, like that, Marines do a very good job of absorbing hits. Every Marine takes 4 hits from a Dragoon, right? So that's half of a tank's health, basically. Tanks take 8 hits from Dragoons to kill. Marines take 4. They also deal reasonable damage, but obviously their Dragoons outrange them and everything. All right, so let's take a look at this push. So this is a pretty standard 2-factory pressure, but after you've been offensive gas, the thing is this comes out a lot slower than if this was a regular timed gas. Even if it was something like a gasless expansion, like a 15 command center, this would be quicker as well. So anyways, he's scanning to kill the observer. Really, really important. And we see, look at this. This is so funny, right? Like, literally right now, Ruin is being attacked, and he's taking time out of this to kill his own gateway, just for smoother unit movement. This is how certain Ruin is of his actual build order, of the actual strategy, that he has enough to deal with this. He doesn't feel like he needs even one extra unit during this. All right, so Light continues to scan and kill observers, which is fantastic. He has speed and mines coming up. Yep, you see those are already done on these vultures. All right, so look, he comes up, he sees where the units are at with that vulture, turns it around, turns his army around. All right, now, these two vultures, this is a great move. In these types of situations, and this kind of shows some of the class of Light, right? Like, he sees a ton of units standing in front of the third base. So he dives towards the main base with the vultures. If you can start getting them to split their units and they split them improperly, this is going to be like a totally awesome moment for you. Then you might actually be able to win with your attack. Now, unfortunately for him, Dragoons are popping out of those 4 gates in the main base. He is on 4 gates in the main, by the way. And you see him start to engage here. But, like, at the beginning of this engagement, right, we have 3 Dragoons in the main base. And then here we have, well, let's see, 3, 6, 7, 8 Goons and a Zealot, right? So it's like 8 Goons and a Zealot against a Vulture, 6 Marines, 3 tanks. And you can see he's just kind of walking through, dragging those mines. And unfortunately, at that point, like, this is kind of what I was talking about, right? This is why Ruin could sit there and, like, kill the gateway and not even be scared. This push is dead. That's basically all of Light's tanks right now. Look at the supply differential that we have up here, right? That is a gigantic supply differential. That is 26 supply advantage for Ruin. He has the extra Nexus up. Okay, we have the third factory finishing up for Light right now against the 4 gates and Robo of Ruin. But look, he lost all of his Marines except for this one so far, which will die. And he has 3 tanks out here, and these have literally 0% chance of getting home. They're dead. Dragoons are just much faster than siege tanks. So as soon as this push doesn't work, and he's in trouble, guys. So you can kind of just jump ahead. The Dragoons hunt the tanks down. Okay, so this position here, that last tank just died. Light right now has 3 functioning factories. He's adding a 4th factory and a command center in his main base right now. And Ruin has to be feeling amazing. Now, one thing I want to mention about Light's position here is he continued to make vultures even when he saw that his tanks were dying. Okay, this is such a high-level move, and this is something I've seen out of Sharp quite a bit as well, that I'm kind of fascinated by, and I love to see from these top Terrans. Even in situations like this, right, you're losing your tanks, and technically the Goons are going to have a big advantage over you. Like, Vultures don't beat Goons, but they get the Vultures out on the map to continue to have something going on to try to keep the Protoss back. If he just starts producing 2 siege tanks at a time and 1 Vulture at a time, Ruin explodes over the map and the game basically is over. Okay? Like, the Vultures at least give him something that he's doing. Because, again, sitting back and just making siege tanks, how are you ever... Like, the thing is, you are going to need siege tanks, but just pumping out a few extra Vultures, right? Having 2 extra Vultures, 4 extra Vultures on the map is going to be immensely helpful for Light, and I'm going to show you. This is literally about to happen, where it's so important. So a Nexus starts, and he finds it instantly because he has these 5 Vultures on the map, and he forces a cancel. This is such an important moment. You can actually see the Dragoons trying to come home, and I think it might be Ruin assuming that there's tanks at home defending for Light, but I believe at this moment Light literally has 0 tanks. So that is such an important moment, guys. Okay, I want to rewind and just take a look at the exact start time of this Nexus, because this is like such an important thing to point out, the difference that a move like this makes in this game. Okay, that's an 847 Nexus. Okay. I'm writing that down. So we're gonna keep track of when he gets it started up again. Okay, so you can see back at home, by the way. Here, I just rewinded it a little bit. Okay, 2 tanks. He has 2 tanks right now. Okay. He's going for factories. Oh, I misread from the minimap, but he's going for factories number 4 and 5. And he's adding a command center. There's a command center to the left there. I can see at the natural that he already has a starport as well. All right, so going up to those 5 facts. And here, oh, we just got a perfect shot of it. 6 gateways. Okay, so we're about to be 5 facts versus 6 gateways. But let's not forget that Ruin hasn't really lost many units. What did he lose against those tanks? He lost, like, a Dragoon and a Zealot, I want to say. Maybe it was 2 Dragoons, but he hasn't lost very much. And you can see this kind of reflected in the supply. Right now, it's a 24 supply advantage for Ruin. And, you know, obviously, he's going to be producing out of 6 production buildings, gateways, plus 1 robo. So he has 7 production buildings that will be building pretty much nonstop. The robo might not be exactly nonstop. And then also you have to factor in observers aren't really combat units. So just keep that in mind. But Reavers will be made. We see the Reaver tech here. Shuttles will be made. Obviously a combat unit as well. Whereas for light, you don't really produce out of the starport until late game when you have like 3 gases, 4 gases going. You know, you might make like 1 thing out of it, but those aren't going to really help in combat anyways. And then he's going to have his 5 factories going. So you're going to watch this supply start to balloon for Ruin. We do have a few vultures that are running out. Look, we're getting ready for this Nexus now. The shuttle going down. More for a scout than anything, I think. Can't really be expecting to do too much damage. But does get to see, like, oh, okay, we have like 5 facts. eBay on the way. Kind of see what the unit composition is looking like. Slow down the command center just slightly. During this time, we just had the 4th Nexus go back up. Okay, so this is going up around 950. Okay, so those vultures that he made instead of the siege tanks, as he was losing the siege tanks to have some awareness on the map, to have some presence, delayed the 4th base by over 1 minute. Okay, that is huge. That is like the amount of a minute in StarCraft is gigantic. So that is so much lost potential for Ruin just because Light made those extra vultures instead of immediately refilling his siege tanks, which could have been a position that was difficult for him. Like if Ruin had immediately gone for an attack with his ranged goons, there was nothing in the bunker, there were no siege tanks at home. He could have gotten something done with that, I think. But obviously you can't know for sure. And by you can't know for sure, I'm just trying to say that like Ruin can't know for sure that there's no tanks there. He wants to get his 4th base up. He's going back to clear that out. So we see carriers are going to be the tech of choice. And look at this supply differential continue to grow. 90 against 131. So we're down 41 supply for Light right now. Like right now, I recall in the cast, we were talking about like, oh man, this position is terrible for Light. This is very, very tough. And it is. There is absolutely no attack timing coming. Speed is done for shuttles. We see tons of zealots being added in. Look at this. 145 against 98. Okay? We're up almost 50 supply for Ruin right now. His 4th base is finishing. The 3rd command center has not been floated over to the 3rd base yet. With that 4th Nexus done. See, just slews of zealots coming out of those 6 gateways. Getting ready for that carrier transition. The most important part of the game is just about to come up. It's nice that he kind of has a mine down in that bottom right, because you can see Ruin getting ready, by the way, to check or to take another base. because he wants to just continue expanding because he's got a gigantic lead. Look at this. He's over 50 supply up right now. He's got multiple speed shuttles. He's got great map awareness. What does Light have for map awareness? Nothing. He's got a mine at that bottom right base and one down the ramp. That's a mine that you see in the top right of the mini map. That in the main base, that's just a mine from one of those run by vultures. That's it. That's his vision. His vision's that and this and whatever he scans with his comsats. Okay, so the very important part of the game will be coming up here very shortly. You see all these zealots coming down, this gigantic supply lead. Light coming out, doing a nice spread. All right, and this is the moment where the game changes, because right here, if you look at it, and this is what, you know, Tasis and I were saying, if I recall correctly in that cast, was like, this is such a, how does Light win from here? 4 bases for Ruin, going into carriers. He's up 53 supply right now. Light hasn't landed his 3rd. How on earth do you win this as Terran? And obviously there's a difference in skill between Light and Ruin, but Ruin I think is an underrated pro right now. Okay, let's take a look at this engagement. All right, so Light just kind of targets down the shuttles. Now this is really, really important. So he's dive bombing with zealots on top of the siege tanks. Okay, Light shift clicked the Goliaths onto the shuttles and then just lets them fight. And the most important part of this battle is the targeting from Light. You will not see these siege tanks do any friendly splash to themselves. If he had not focus fired these siege tanks onto the Dragoons, Ruin literally wins the game right here. Like, the game ends right here, otherwise. Watch. You see him continually retarget. Whenever you see the tanks, like, kind of shake their heads like that, that's because he's retargeting them. So notice the Dragoons basically get demolished. He does end up losing his siege tanks, but if the siege tanks had taken any friendly fire, the Dragoons would have lived longer, dealt more damage, and the siege tanks would have killed themselves more quickly. This would have been an extremely one-sided fight for Ruin. Instead, Light did a pretty equal trade. But, okay, his siege tank count was greatly reduced here, and that's something we talk about a lot in Terran vs. Protoss, and how that is an integral part of Protoss strategy, is to try to reduce siege tank counts, because that is the part of the army that really has the long-term value, right? Like, vultures get thrown away and rebuilt very quickly. Siege tanks store the value of the Terran army, right? They're the big guns. They're the ones that are killing units over and over and over that you're trying to keep alive, that cost more money and all that. So, now I recall specifically in this position, I'm like, well, I mean, I can't remember exactly what I said in the cast, but it was something to the effect of that I thought that this was good for Ruin overall. Because he did kill a lot of siege tanks there. Now, here's the problem, because this is actually why Light was able to win the game, was this engagement right here. Now, we've been talking about the production, right? So we have the Robo, and we have 6 gateways for Ruin right now. For Light, we have at least 5 facts, and I believe he's maybe adding some more. Okay. I mean, obviously this is a VOD. I can't click around and look exactly. But also consider we probably have a bit of a probe lead compared to the SCV count. So let's call the army supply somewhat even. Maybe slight advantage for Light. Now, here's the problem for Ruin. He's going into carriers. He doesn't have an army that's going to fight very well scrappily. You have to kind of think about the power of Zealots and Dragoons and what you're looking to do. In the early game, Zealots and Dragoons are pretty good against Terran before you kind of get critical masses that can fight them. But actually, when you look at it, a lot of that is because you don't have speed, you don't have mines, you don't have siege. Okay? You don't have any attack upgrades or armor upgrades or anything like that. Once that occurs, once you have those upgrades, small battles start to favor Terran. Right? So early game, small battles are going to more likely favor Protoss units. You're going to get a few more out anyways. but also you get the range on Dragoons normally by 4 minutes and 30 seconds that's done. Whereas those 3 upgrades for Terran sometimes aren't done until 12 minutes, right? Like, you don't always get them quickly depending on the game. But in a situation like this, where we're on similar production facilities, the most powerful unit that you're going to have across both races is going to be the Vulture. So Light takes this opportunity where it is right now 4 bases against 2, and he just lost a bunch of his siege tanks, and he turns this completely into his own favor. He scans to kill that observer. Again, very important. You see a lot of zealots being made, right? That's basically the army of Ruin. He threw away everything else. We have 4 tanks only for Light. You see Ruin adding more gates now. He does have the carrier switch ready. But this is not a valuable army. Now Light goes up and just divides the map up, starts laying some mines down, sends all of his siege tanks, and he's taking his 3rd base during all of this. This is the critical moment here, right? So Ruin going in and trading off, this is actually going to really cost him. You see he's starting to panic a little bit. He's throwing out a Zealot to try to clear some of the mines. A huge amount of Vultures are being made. And I believe right now that Light is only rallying Vultures. Of course, I can't check exactly, but that's what it looks like. And when you think about it, it's like, well, 4 siege tanks here on that high ground. Here, let's jump back to that high ground. Look at this position he's taken, right? 4 siege tanks on this high ground, plus Vultures underneath, like non-stop Vulture rally. The Vulture is the quickest unit that there is. So the Vultures come right across the map and reinforce. How many Dragoons would you actually need to break through there? And then if it's Zealots, obviously they're going to get eaten by mines and eaten by the Vultures. So this base is dead. Because Ruin did that attack, he has no way to defend against this now. And part of the reason why this game looked like it did is because he's preparing for a carrier switch. He had all these early advantages, and he produced units nonstop that allowed him to do things like bust up the 3 tank, 6 marine push in the beginning, right? So he produced nonstop out of his production facilities, but he did not save his units. What he needed to do here was not do that attack, but instead just keep his army around so that the carrier transition would be cleaner, so that he could get into his carriers, start pumping money into those, because his army would be very difficult to attack and or strong enough that it can threaten a counterattack. In this situation, his gateway army is nothing and his carrier army is nothing. They're both garbage right now because he did that attack in. And the thing is, I understand in a lot of ways. I think that Ruin probably wins a lot of games that look similar to this with an attack like that. Like I mentioned, if we didn't have those tanks targeting the Dragoons, Ruin can win there. Instead, he lost. Now, the game, that was the main thing I wanted to show here, because it was amazing to see Ruin get so far ahead of Light and then for Light to come back. And you can see it's like 1 Dragoon trying to clear mines. Yeah, right. This is gone now. And but the game is actually still relatively close, because Light is going to make a mistake here in a moment too. You can see how many Vultures he has. He's just producing Vultures nonstop. And just for the record, Vultures build more quickly than Zealots. So in a situation like this, not only do they beat Zealots, like, you're getting so many out. It's 19-second build time versus the 32 of a Dragoon. But Light actually makes a bit of a mistake here. He overestimates his own power and underestimates Ruin's, right? He comes up and decides he can kill the 3rd base as well. The actual best thing he could have done here was to retreat and reinforce his army. Okay, his army looks pretty big and scary right now. And obviously, if he kills this 3rd base, he, wins the game. But you can see that Ruin has been macroing. He hasn't actually thrown units away into the push on the 4th. So while Light's army, it looks good, he's going to lose it now. Whereas if he pulls back with this army immediately, he's going to maintain even supply with Ruin. And he's going to have a lot, look, 6 siege tanks right now, plus a ton of Vultures. Plus, if you look at the minimap, we have mines everywhere. He has his 3rd gas up. He has his upgrades going. He already has 2 on upgrades. If he pulls back here, this game is super one-sided for Light. Come over, and here's the engage. Drops the Reaver on the tanks. Beautiful Reaver on the tanks. getting those couple of hits to clear the top 2 tanks. And as you can see, here, let's go back and look at the supply at the beginning. Okay, so 142 to 157. Okay, let's go. 142, 157. All right, everything coming in. And you can see it just turns super one-sided here. So basically the end of this, and Light's going to lose a few more vultures up here. So we have a 20, let's call it a 24 supply swing downwards for Light and a 7 supply swing downwards for Ruin, right? And some of that's going to be in probes as well, which doesn't really matter as much. So this is where Ruin starts to, you know, he has this good clear, and then, you know, the game goes on. And it's a great game. I definitely suggest you guys go check it out or go watch it again. Gets into carriers, and Light ends up being able to take this one down. But yeah, imagine if he had lost those units there. Anyways, this, I felt like, oh, oops. Anyways, guys, I felt, yeah, good game. Definitely it was. I felt like this was a great game to kind of look at and go over, because I remember while I was casting, I don't think I did the game justice, and it was hard to actually call what positions we are in. You know, when you're casting and everything, it's hard to take a look and be like, oh gosh, okay, so it's exactly 6 gates right now. He's trying to power up into carriers. This is going to leave Light with 5 to 7 factories finishing up, and then Vulture Rally. He still has 4 tanks left. All the Dragoons died. Yes, it's a Light victory, right? But yeah, anyways, I think that's a great game to learn from. I know that I learned a lot watching that game and going over that game several times, and I hope you did too, whether you're a Terran or a Protoss. All right, guys, thank you much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and leave me a comment below to let me know if you like this type of video.